I took Sean Ryan to one of the immigrant camps, one of the migrant camps right on the border, and had a giant Biden flag in the middle of it, which is pretty hilarious. I'm very traumatized. I've been through a lot of shit myself, so I'm very observant. That doesn't happen anymore. There's nobody like us anymore on that border. There's nobody's going to be like, oh, look at these guys are weird. The whole build the wall Trump phenomenon that we saw was like amazing for them.
Yeah, the cartel wants Trump to win because it brings more money to them.
He told me, he was like, there's different ways we make money, and if you're really stupid and you give us a lot of details about them, we'll open source information, those fuckers.
What I found interesting in the past 3 years, 4 years, whatever, is the almost neglect of what's happening on the border. And I'll say it that way, the neglect as in like almost this passive, like, oh yeah, the border crisis, but no real actions being made that have been effective, and also seeing this kind of loophole claiming asylum system that turns into still allowing entry into this country without any kind of deeper investigation onto the individuals or whatnot, right? So just on that alone, is there a threat that we should be worried about with... Yeah, please go ahead.
I'm from Tijuana. It's my hometown. Every now and then I get a lot of criticism because I talk disparagingly about Mexico, and I wish I worked for the tourist industry so I can talk about some of the beautiful places in Mexico. I make it a point to talk about a lot of, specifically my hometown, and I actually have a podcast myself that I film in Tijuana. And I try to prove a point around it. It's like,
I'd love to come there with you one day.
You're more than welcome. We just had Eddie Gallagher on. We had a few people just come down and eat tacos, and we'll show them around the city. It's one thing that's very clear down there, and I think I've taken a few reporters around and kind of seen some of the situation down there. I took Sean Ryan to one of the immigrant camps right on the border, which is funny as hell. I think he took a video of it. I have a picture of it somewhere. It's this one of the migrant camps right on the border, and had a giant Biden flag in the middle of it, which is pretty hilarious. We handed out a bunch of "Make America Great Again" hats to those guys. They didn't know what they said. It was pretty funny. But you saw within this group of people stories that were pretty interesting, and you would see reporters come down from news agencies in the U.S. that would kind of ignore those stories. They wanted the human experience, but they didn't want to hear about the fact that they didn't want the North Africans staying with them in that camp because they didn't want those guys there, and they would stay somewhere else. They wouldn't talk about the Russian and Chinese immigrants that would show up because they would stay somewhere else. They would not only stay somewhere else, they would stay like in housing. So somebody clearly with money from China is providing a pipeline from Mexico up into the U.S., right? And if you know anything about intelligence, Chinese intelligence is basically everybody in China is part of the Chinese intelligence organization. So I don't know. I do a lot of. I'm very traumatized. I've been through a lot of shit myself, so I'm very observant. And when I see some of these young Chinese military age individuals walk around in cadence without swinging one of their arms, the right arm, it's suspicious. I don't know. Maybe they all went through military training out there. It's like an obligatory thing in China, but I don't know. It's weird. You see a lot of strange occurrences of people being caught with fake Mexican IDs who are clearly Arab or of Arab descent.
Really?
And some of them with documentation that comes all the way from Spain. Like they were clearly being moved into Mexico.
Yeah, like a strategic approach to do it.
Yeah. So. And in the past, the U.S. would have people that knew a little bit about this stuff on the border, like myself or some people that used to work in our liaison unit, and would have an open line of communication. We're like, hey, I know how to speak English. And also a bunch of you guys showed me what to look out for. This guy looks weird. He's from, He's an Egyptian guy, and he has this fake documentation. Do you want to know about him? I guess that doesn't happen anymore. There's nobody like us anymore on that border. There's nobody's going to be like, oh, look at these guys are weird. Let's see if we need to tell somebody about it. It's silence now. So it's basically it's free for all on that border.
Yeah, we had a gentleman on here named Corey who lives on the ranch down by Ukumba in San Diego, and he collected over, I think it's close to 1,000 Chinese national documents from ID cards to passports. Just discarded.
You dump them. You have to dump them because they could tell people who you are. I used to find them in Tecate, like burn piles. It's basically people burning their documentation, just sifting through some of these. These are, Tunisian passports, weird Egyptian ones, just anywhere in the Middle East. You would see North Africa. But the alarming thing is the volume, specifically the volume recently. Back when I was active, 6-7 years ago, you would see, small groups of people walking in line, dressed in camo, maybe, making an effort to hide, having these black water jugs and everything and carpet shoes. They don't give a fuck now. They just fucking just march in formation and just in masses. I think that's what they figured out. And it on the cartel side, it's Christmas. I mean, they're taxing every single one that goes through that border.
Yeah, statistics have shown that they're making more money transporting bodies than they are drugs anymore. And so it's more prevalent to see bodies coming across. And I say bodies as in humans, right? Human trafficking, human smuggling, whatever you want to deem it. But yeah, so there's more money right now currently what they're doing with humans than it is drugs.
Yeah, and speaking to, I got to speak to one of them probably 4 or 5 years ago. Just right at the start of this, like the caravans, and he was saying like, like the whole build the wall Trump phenomenon that we saw was like amazing for them because they even with the heightened border security, they could still put people through the ways they had in the past.
Yeah.
So they only made the perception of it being more expensive.
Yeah.
I
interviewed Luis Chaparro, and he was like, yeah, the cartel wants Trump to win because it brings more money to them, because the notion or the idea,
the perception.
Yeah, the perception of it'll be more challenging to cross. People are willing to pay more because they want to make sure they gain access. And so and crossings did drop, and then these mass waves of migration started hitting the border. But he told me, he was like, there's different ways we make money. One, we'll tax you if you have to cross through our territory. We'll tax your family who's already on the U.S. side, and if you're stupid enough to tell us you have family on the U.S. side, we'll tax them. And if you're really stupid and you give us a lot of details about them, we'll open source information those fuckers